Update 5.2 and the associated time to kill changes have been with us for just over a week now. The community's response, at least from those vocal, has been relatively clear. Whether my own community here on YouTube, the likes of Jack Frags asking his viewers to like or dislike his video, reporting on the changes depending on their opinion of them, or the source of constant top tier Battlefield meme material, which is of course the Battlefield 5 Reddit page. It doesn't seem like the community is going to be giving up on this issue. So today, community manager Part Welsh gave us the promised update on the next steps. Unsurprisingly, we're getting a hotfix to further adjust the time to kill changes, spotting changes, and various critical bugs that Update 5.2 brought with it. Crucially, however, while we are seeing adjustments to the changes brought about by the time to kill changes, we will not be seeing a reversal. Instead, just small adjustments. In today's video then, we'll be first and foremost informing you on what the 5.2.2 update, the hotfix, is going to be bringing to Battlefield 5. Following that, frankly, just as importantly, I want to talk about what the effect of the current and upcoming changes has and will be on the game, what constitutes good balance and what issues exist with DICE's current approach, as well as what changes could or should actually be made to Battlefield 5's weapon balance. I'll top that all off with the usual salty conclusion. You'll find timestamps to all the relevant sections of the video down below in the description. So, what's changing with Update 5.2.2? Well, as regards the weapon balance, DICE considers the patch a partial success, the reduction in average engagement distance that leads to a kill, a higher average kill per minute, and the conclusion from that the game pace remains relatively fast. They also clarify in this post that it was actually always the intention to decrease the long range time to kill of weapons, something they must have just forgotten to mention when first reporting on these changes. They do however consider the close quarter and some of the more extreme long range bullet to kill nerfs a little harsh, and thus will be adjusting them with these updates. No weapons should now require more than 10 bullets to take out a target, with the previous maximum of course sitting at 13. Additionally, some of the close quarter bullet to kill minimum values will be decreasing to those we had previous to this update. Specifically then, this means the ZK3A3, EMP, MP40 and Sten gun will be going from a 4 to 11 shot kill down to a 4 to 10 shot kill. The ZK3A3 with the light bolt specialization, MP28, M1928A1 and Swarmy will be going from a 5 to 13 to a 4 to 10 bullet to kill, but with a faster drop off than the comparable EMP or MP40. The Type 100 is going from a 5 to 12 to a 5 to 10 shot kill, the STG from a 5 to 8 to a 4 shot kill, the Sturmgewehr 1.5 from a 6 to 9 to 5 to 9 shot kill, as well as with some recoil reductions. The M1907SF copies essentially the changes made to the higher fire rate SMGs, going from a 5 to 13 shot kill to a 4 to 10 shot kill. The Breda gets its 4 shot kill in close quarter back. The KE7 Type 97 Bren gun and Lewis gun go from a 5 to 8 shot kill to a 4 to 8 shot kill. The LS26 goes from a 4 to 11 to a 4 to 9 bullet to kill, whereas the FG42 receives a similar buff just with faster drop off compared to the LS26. Lastly then, the MG42 and VGO will be going from a 5 to 13 to a 4 to 10 shot kill. The Turner SMLM MAS 44 will be getting a 3 bullet kill, sub 30 meters, and the AGM 42 will be getting an increase to its fire rate from 300 to 360 rounds per minute. If you were thus hoping for anything but really a slight balance adjustment from DICE here, I'm afraid DICE is once more here to disappoint. Faster firing LMGs and ARs will continue to behave identical or close to identical to the faster firing SMGs. And while you can expect small improvements to the time to kill at the most of extreme close quarters, that is sub 10 meters, don't expect the bullet to kill reductions at extreme range really to make any significant difference. Whether you require 13 or 10 bullets, these weapons will continue to be completely unviable for anything but extreme close quarters. DICE here is truly doubling down, digging deeper, and holding tight instead of reversing these changes, as personally I think they should. As regards spotting and enemy acquisition changes then, we have the all-out removal of the indirect highlighting of enemies in your FOV in close quarters. The highlighting of enemies when aiming at them directly, however, remains in the game, simply with a reduced distance, now only available within 20 meters, and a tighter qualifying angle. In other words, you need to more accurately actually be looking at the target for him to be highlighted. Also, there should be some fixes to the smoke grenades and icons showing through them, which should of course be a given. And as regards some of the more important bugs, the MG42 high velocity bullet specialization not having the adaptive bullet to kill values will sadly be something for the past once this patch goes live. The could not fetch report issue should hopefully be fixed via a backend patch, and there should be some general stability improvements to go alongside as well. That wraps up what the patch is bringing us. So what does both this coming update and our current 5.2 weapon balance actually mean in terms of how it affects gameplay? Now, you can truly dislike the time to kill changes just for being slower in its own right, and frankly, I do as well. But just as importantly, these changes come with additional consequences. Increased zerging as consequence of the increased difficulty of taking out an enemy. Increased gadget and grenade spam as primary weapons are no longer as effective. The Panzerfaust nerfs and the tank buffs have turned some maps and modes into absolute vehicle farming simulators, and while the update has brought essentially an increased skill cap for 1v1 engagements, it has also made multi-target engagements or quick successive engagements close to impossible. More on that in just a minute. Most importantly of all though, it is an inherently unbalanced and ill thought out system. And here's why. Firstly, you want weapons to be predictable and consistent in their performance. While each weapon should feel unique, weapon classes should still feel similar enough to each other so that players can transfer their skills and muscle memories from one weapon to another, within a given class of course. Thus, wherever possible, within the same class of weaponry, you should have identical or similar damage models. So for example, the maximum 13 or soon to be 10 bullet to kill M1907 feels and behaves completely different from the maximum 7 bullet to kill Ribeirol. Also, the changing of bullet to kill values every 5 meters, as is currently the case with the Tommy gun, between for example 10 and 20 meters, going up by 3 shots in that engagement range, leaves players unable to actually predict how many shots they're going to have to land to take out a target. Also, rapid damage drop-offs generally should be avoided. They make the number of shots needed to take out a target very unpredictable, and as a result, the time to kill in-game becomes even longer as you end up putting more shots into someone than you actually need, exposing yourself to enemy fire even longer. Secondly, weapon balance should actually fit an actual player's experience, considering game modes, player behavior and the number of players, as well as the map design of the game. This means specifically balancing weapons around 1v1s and the multi-target environment that we have in Battlefield 5. Generally, a slower time to kill is suitable for lower player counts and game modes where individuals will generally only ever square off against one other player. There, longer time to kills means having to remain accurate for longer, better tracking, and can frankly be relatively successfully argued means an increase to the skill level required. Battlefield 5 of course isn't however a exclusive 1v1 game mode. It involves a large number of players generally in close proximity to each other, especially if you play more linear orientated game modes such as Frontlines, Grind or Breakthrough, and even some of the Conquest maps. It's thus important that a player can deal with multiple targets at a time or in quick succession. A slow time to kill and high bullet to kill makes this far more difficult for a whole host of reasons, including exposure time, more damage taken, and the increased frequency of reloads amongst other reasons. Lastly then, fixed and ideal engagement distances. Update 5.2 has brought in a very limiting balance model, and this isn't going to change with Update 5.2.2 either. Essentially, each weapon must have one engagement distance at which it performs well. Outside of that, weapons perform very poorly, discouraging you from engaging with them at all. That isn't just not fun though, it actually, contrary to your stated intention, actually decreases weapon variety. An ideal engagement distance-based balancing model as we had it previous to the 5.2 update instead focuses on a range or situation at which a weapon exceeds and outperforms the competition, but without the need for being completely useless outside of that range. You should be fighting at a disadvantage if you're not within your ideal engagement distance, but if you're significantly more accurate, get the jump on your enemy via flank, or have a significantly better position, for example behind some good cover, you can compensate for that disadvantage. That was the case before this patch, that is very much not the case after this patch. It therefore puts an emphasis not only on your weapon choice, but also your positioning abilities, your accuracy, and your weapon control. Things that very much should be of relevance when deciding who wins a firefight. This means a balancing model based on fire rate, damage model, and recoil, especially horizontal, as that acts essentially as spread in Battlefield 5, not simply fire rate and damage, is not only far more interesting and enjoyable, but allows for a greater variety of weaponry in Battlefield 5 as well. So what should actually then be changed? Now, I have no desire to go through every primary and secondary weapon in the game and try to analyze if previous to the 5.2 update, each one of them was balanced correctly. That's for DICE to do, and if they think a weapon is performing too well at a range it isn't intended to compete with some of the competition out there, they can easily address this with the help of recoil, spread, specialization options, or other weapon attributes, muzzle velocity, ADS time, fire rate, just to name a few. That is the way DICE should have generally proceeded on the basis of the 5.2 time to kill and bullet to kill models. But there are some larger changes as well that could be made and that I think would somewhat improve balance or enjoyability of infantry combat. The objective here being to make existing weapons more enjoyable, less random, and less frustrating, and the same for the death experience of the player being killed by the weapon. And the specific things I want to talk about are close quarter changes to the headshot multipliers, medium machine guns, and anti-material rifles. As regards the close quarter damage model for headshots, the problem with ARs, SMGs, LMGs, and MMGs currently, or rather previous to this update in 5.0, was that you could essentially half your time to kill with a couple of lucky headshots that you, let's be honest, hip-fired luckily into your enemy without even attempting to do so. Now, yes, there are players that go even in close quarters for accurate headshots deliberately, but the majority of players on the battlefield don't, and thus the majority of essentially insta-deaths from only 2 shots, with weapons firing as fast as close to 1,000 rounds per minute, are luck instead of 4 or 5 shot kills sub 10 meters. Thus, changing that headshot multiplier to say 1.8, or actually making it increase over distance, would decrease the effectiveness of those lucky headshots in close quarters, while maintaining them as an effective way to take out your targets faster, just not quite as brutal. And at medium long ranges, you can keep the 2 times headshot multiplier fully as is, thus making essentially no changes to the lethality of the weapons. That would remove a lot of sub 200 millisecond so-called insta-deaths in sub 10 meters close quarter, in my personal opinion and experience. As regards the medium machine guns then, allow them to fully ADS when prone and also when crouching, but with, of course, significantly increased recoil. Also, force authentic bursting of these weapons through rapid overheat or rapidly increasing recoil models. Likely 3 to 5 shot bursts should be where the weapon performs best. This would effectively decrease the time to kill of the likes of the MG42, but it would also make them more balanced and still enjoyable. Now, this idea of bursting these medium machine guns doesn't come out of nowhere either. In reality, German soldiers in World War II were instructed to burst for roughly 3 to 7 shots to conserve ammo and to avoid overheating the barrel. Now, that doesn't mean they never went full auto, but it does mean that in practice, this wasn't the standard instruction given to the people using these weapons. This, in combination with the ability to use it when crouching down, means that MMGs are far more mobile, but less ridiculous in their damage output. Essentially, they are slightly more powerful LMGs that you can't just use hip firing away at long ranges or just ADS quickly, but instead still have to at least go crouched and aim down sight for full accurate use, and require a bit of bursting to make them effective as well. Lastly then, the anti-material rifles. Instead of having those as primary weapon, why not make them a gadget for the recon class? Limit their maximum damage to 99 against infantry with bullet shots, and limit the amount of bullets they carry. This would give the recon an anti-tank gadget that is now the only useful anti-tank weapon really at medium and long range. The Panzerforce, of course, has been nerfed into oblivion, and tanks now have an easier time than ever camping at long ranges if they want to. I'd also, of course, make sure that the anti-tank rifle is limited in its effective range, maybe dropping its damage off significantly after maybe 75 or 100 meters to avoid absolute long-range tank harassment. But overall, I think this could be an improvement to the current meta of the game, give the gadget a role in helping to take out the now improved and very powerful vehicles, and reduce frustration from random camping one-shot body shots, which otherwise are the case with this weapon as primary option. On to my promised conclusion then. DICE has not had a good run with Battlefield 5. They have shown repeated incompetence as regards the delay or cancelling of content, unstable game performance, bug-ridden patches, and the lack of fundamental FPS features such as Team Balancer or a proper RSP program, to name just a few. They are yet to deliver on all of the aspects of the game that they promised at launch, that they promised you and I when we bought the game. The one aspect that almost universally was praised throughout many difficult times with this game has been the weapon balance and the time to kill model, with the exception of course of the MMGs and AT rifles, which are a little bit more on the controversial side. That fantastic gunplay though is what has kept individuals like myself and those I play with coming back to the game, sticking with the game, helping DICE improve on their mistakes and hopefully helping them learn from them. As reward for all that, they put out downright misleading or untrue statements as regards their intentions with this patch. After all, it wasn't supposed to be for the noobs, though it has even brought back aim assist now on console. It wasn't supposed to increase the time to kill. That's what DICE explicitly told us and even promised last year when they attempted to change the time to kill. They have of course in the meantime officially confirmed that actually that was the intention all along, specifically and especially as regards the more medium and long range engagements. So the reward for loyalty to a franchise that has struggled for over a year at the hands of a development studio that couldn't meet its own deadlines, its own standards, its own goals, let alone the expectations of its community, is dishonesty and continued ignorance of what can only be described overwhelming opposition to these changes. Let me clarify, they don't make sense in terms of balance, they don't make sense even for the sake of making the game more accessible for new players or improving weapon variety, and they surely don't make the game more enjoyable. Who, what or why is driving these changes over at DICE? I really don't know, but I personally doubt they know what they're actually doing. And at this point, it's left me not only worried about the future of Battlefield 5, but actually the future of the whole Battlefield franchise. But that pretty much wraps it up then for the 5.2.2 update and the time to kill changes. Feel free to share your own opinions down below. Enjoy the video, rating would be much appreciated. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 5 video.